I'd like to call to order the August 2020 Board of Commissioners Township of Whitehall public meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, followed by a moment of thanks for members of the armed forces, especially those in harm's way, our first responders, our healthcare workers, food supply workers, municipal staff, and employees who are helping our community and country through this hard time. Begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll read the HUD statement. Whitehall Township has an obligation to affirmably further fair housing and to review all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. This includes taking meaningful actions that overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access to opportunity based on protected characteristics. The township, in its land use decisions, does not discriminate against persons based on race, color, natural origin, religion, sex, disability, or familial status, and reviews all land use applications in accordance with federal civil rights statutes. Public comments made on the basis of bias and stereotype concerning people within these protected classes will not be taken into consideration by the township in its deliberations. One brief note of housekeeping. There was an executive session held on Wednesday, the 5th of August, 2020 at 6 p.m. The meeting room at the Copley Whitehall Sewer Authority was used for this executive session. There were 6 commissioners present and the attorney, and the reason for the session was legal issues. Now, getting on.
Excuse me, Phil.
Yes.
It's Lee. Jack Rose sent me a message and he said he's listed as an attendee instead of a panelist.
I'm on now, Lee. I'm sorry, okay. Zach upgraded me. I thank you, and I appreciate the help. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, we have okay, attorney.
Yes, yeah, I'm here. Zach helped me out.
Okay,
thank you.
That's great. All right. We mentioned executive session. Now, Mr. Secretary, could you please poll the board that we have a video recording of who's present? An audio recording, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Attia?
Here.
Commissioner D?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Swaniker? Here. Mr. Warren?
Here.
Commissioner Fisher?
Here.
And President Ginder?
Here.
All 7 commissioners are online.
Next, do I have approval of the minutes of the July 2020 public meeting? Do I have a motion?
Attia will make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second, Fisher.
Warren.
Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
I do have a comment.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
On page 3, bill number 22-2020, there weren't any remarks or voting preferences on my copy. The authorization to purchase the dump trucks. And the only one comment that I had was whether there were intentions on purchasing another truck in next year's budget, and if there was opportunity to get a better price if we order 2 at the same time. And I think the answer was no, we're only getting 1 this year. That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments on the minutes? Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Attia? Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner D?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Swaniker? Aye. Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
And President Ginder?
Yes.
Passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, courtesy of the floor, is there anybody who wishes to speak, Zach?
I don't see anybody specifically for that. I have some folks that have specific agenda items they wanted to review. If anybody does have a question, do you want to pop it in the chat or the Q&A?
If there's anybody that wants courtesy of the floor to speak about any township issues. Nobody in the chat room?
Yeah, I don't see anything specifically for that. Again, it's just for the upcoming bills and ordinances.
Then we're going to move on. Public hearing and voting on ordinances. Bill number 14-2020. An ordinance deferring the required installation of sidewalks along the Quarry Street frontage of 3434 North Front Street for a distance of approximately 190 feet, as required in Chapter 1, Section 21-16 of the Codified Ordinances of Whitehall Township. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Oh, God.
I'll make that motion, Mark.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Fisher.
Comments from the board? Any comments from the board?
Sorry to put you through this, but I was down there, and it's very hard for me to visualize what the size of the street is going to do to impact where the sidewalks were going to be.
Engineer Frank Clark, can you help with this?
Sure. I didn't quite understand your question, Tom. Are you saying with the widening of the street, where would you put the sidewalk? Is that what you're saying?
No, when I got on the street, I was there for about a half hour just looking there, and I can't tell where the sidewalks would go when the street is widened.
Right. You're more or less into the embankment there.
Yeah.
And that, because I know they're widening the road several feet within the right of way, and then basically once they get the curb in there, there's about 6 inches or maybe a foot of right of way left, and that's it. And then you're into that embankment.
And I understand that, but we've had people that had physical impediments to doing things, and that's why they invented shovels and backhoes.
Well, I'm just trying to illustrate what you're seeing out there. I'm not going to comment on that. I'll leave it up to their engineer.
Is the engineer for this development present?
Yes, he is. You have to unmute Mike Houston.
He's unmuted. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, this is Michael Houston representing the project.
So, can you help Commissioner Sloniker with his question?
I'm not sure. I think I'm of the same thought pattern that Frank was. I'm not sure I completely understand. I did offer to Mr. Sloniker last week to graciously meet him out there, and I did not receive a call. It would have been easier for me to explain this to him physically at the site. But like Frank said, we are extending the current road by a width of just less than 4 feet. It's about 3 feet, 8 inches to maximize the width of that paved area, which was a major concern for the residents in that immediate area around the property. And then we are also installing curb. And as Frank said, the back of the curb is approximately 6 inches from the right of way or the property line of our property. And then once you get beyond that property line, there will be, manicured yards that are, much less of a slope than is currently shown in that photo. I mean, I think we're cutting about 5 or 6 feet, maybe 7 feet of that embankment down. So it will be a relatively flat backyard, albeit there's no room behind the curb to actually place sidewalk, because the request of the residents was to make the road wider for parking issues. So we did that, which was the recommendation from the Planning Commission to try and assist those current residents as much as possible. I don't know if that answers Mr. Schloneker's question.
Is that helping, Tom? He's muted.
With this backseat. So I certainly understand what you just said, what you said last week. It's just that it's hard for me to visualize where these sidewalks are being deferred. I mean, you say this slope. Well, we've had much bigger slopes that were attended to by the owners.
It's not a slope. I'm sorry, it's not a slope issue that the slope has nothing to do with the fact that we're requesting a deferral. The deferral is based on the fact that there's no property left. We are expanding your roadway right up to our property line. There is no property beyond the back of the curb to physically put sidewalk. The existing residents all along that street came out in heavy droves during the Planning Commission meetings, and strongly suggested or strongly urged us to widen that road to make it safer for the cars to travel up and down that road. With the owners backing out onto Quarry Street, there was legitimate concern that the road was not wide enough. So, it was our decision to work with the Planning Commission and widen that road to the widest possible width within the right-of-way of the road. So once we're done with our proposed development and the curbing is in on our side, there is literally 6 inches of room until you hit the right-of-way line. So there is no room to put sidewalk there. The slope has nothing to do with it. The yards will be relatively flat yards along the back of the proposed developments. We have walkout garages or walkout basements in the back. So they're going to be 7 or 8, maybe even 9 feet lower than that existing grade that's shown in that picture up above those trees there. The slope has nothing to do with the deferral request.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
I have a question. Where are these residents going to put their garbage cans? Will they be out in the street or where?
I don't have any provisions for that. I would assume that they would leave them right at the end of their driveways, just like this picture shows where these people have them. Obviously there's not going to be any sidewalk there, so they would just leave it right at the end of the driveway, which is right at the curb line.
Mm-hmm. And what I don't understand is when the 3 buildings came to us for approval, we were told at that meeting when we approved them that there was not going to be a problem to put sidewalks in back there.
I don't know who told you that.
Well, that's what I heard that night, unless I was dreaming.
Well, I mean,
they said there'd be no problem. They can get them in.
Well, I know I did not say that. We can always lessen the road width and go and make room for sidewalks, and then just make the road less in width.
Because personally, I think I'd prefer to see the sidewalk more than the road, for the reason being the existing sidewalk that's there has mailboxes in it, telephone poles in it, and everything else. If a person wanted to come down that that sidewalk in a wheelchair, I believe he'd have a devil of a time going through. And that there's more than one telephone pole in that sidewalk on the other side.
Well, I would be encouraged to see a person in a wheelchair try and traverse down Hakkendakwa, which we are installing sidewalks there.
Well, but that's neither one or the other. I mean, if you're going to put sidewalks in, then let's get them there that people can use them.
Well, that's part of my point, is that if you put sidewalks on our side, they don't go anywhere that a handicapped person could actually access.
Well, I believe they would go out to Hakkendakwa Street and there would be a curb cut there, correct?
There would, but why would a person coming down the sidewalk on the left side of the picture that is shown, why would they cross over the street to our sidewalk, to come down our sidewalk, to cross back over?
Well, they'd almost have to. It's either that or negotiate the telephone pole and get off into the yard here and there.
Well, that's not something that I have control over.
Well, it is. Now's the time. We do have control over this. Now's the time. There's new stuff going in. So we can make it as good as we can make it.
Oh, I understand that you're trying to make it as good as you can make it. What I'm saying is I have no control over the improvements that were approved years ago on the other side of the street.
And that's water long gone. So, but we do have the ability to make it right now as best as we can in that neighborhood.
Right, but the sidewalks that we would install, they won't go anywhere.
Well, they would go at least out to Hakkendakwa Street. Is that correct?
Yes, from the end of our property.
So we could at least get out to Hakkendakwa Street and then down the hill to the rail trail if somebody wanted to go on the rail trail and other things down there.
But again, I would question why someone would not use the current sidewalk on the other side of the street. Why would they cross over to come down and then only cross back over again?
Simply because trying to get a wheelchair with the telephone pole in the middle of the sidewalk.
Well, that's 3/4 of the way up the block. There's two driveway cuts.
It doesn't matter if it's 2 miles up the block. You want to argue? We'll start arguing.
I'm not trying to argue with you, Mr. Ginder. I'm just trying to point out that it makes no common sense. If somebody wanted to go...
Then I might not have common sense if that's your opinion. I wouldn't state it that way. I'd certainly change my English.
I'm not... Sir, would you please calm down? I'm not saying
I'm perfectly calm. You haven't heard me upset yet.
I'm not stating that you have
don't state that I don't have common sense. Let me tell you that right now. Now move on, sir.
Sir, can I please finish?
I just told you to move on.
I'm obviously not going to win the favor of this board. So all I was trying to say was that a person in a wheelchair it would not make sense for them to come out into the street beyond that pole and then come down through the road to our property. It's every bit of 100 feet. They would go back into the sidewalk that's currently there with no impediments in it. If you guys want the sidewalk, we'll have to put it in, but it's going to be at the mercy of the width of the road. We're going to have to lessen the width of the road to be able to get the sidewalk in there.
So I have one question. So you're telling me the limitation of this sidewalk is a line on a paper map?
When you say line, I mean,
you're saying the right of way. When you widen the street, you said there's 6 inches of right of way.
Correct.
So we gave you the variance from 3 units to 4 units. We gave you the variance for the driveway. There's a number of variances that went along to make this property go through. And you're saying the sidewalk can't go in because there's only 6 inches left on a paper map.
Right. We were trying to appease the residents. Okay. We were trying to appease your residents and your planning commission to make the road as safe as possible for those existing residents. I've had these discussions with the planning commission, and we, Frank and Lee and I, we all went back and forth. And, I'm not going to say that they made the decision, but, it was our decision to widen the road to make it safest for those existing residents. They were out in droves saying that that road was not wide enough.
Well, it's probably also to accommodate a driveway for cars turning on from your property too. I mean, if there's a car parked there on the curb, there's a tight turn for someone coming down a 10% grade driveway, turning on the Quarry Street. But okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I have one. Mr. Houston, this is Commissioner Marks. I just have a question. When you say you can't accommodate the sidewalk and the widening of the street, why is that? If you could explain that in detail, because you could still widen the street, put in a curb, and then introduce sidewalks on the private property, could you not?
Yes, we could do that onto private property.
Okay.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. So why are we having this debate? You can still widen the street, you can still put in a curb, and you can still put in sidewalks on private property, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I think that mutes this whole argument. Now, are you telling us you will not widen the street if you're required to put sidewalks in?
No, what I was trying to convey was that within the limits of the public right of way, if we had to put sidewalk within those limits, then we would have to lessen the width of the road. If you're going to suggest that we put the sidewalk on private property with some sort of an easement, then yes, it would fit. The only issue that's raised then is what I brought up last week, where when we meet the end of our property, which is in this photo,
Right,
kind of
it'll be
where
dead
that,
end.
right, where it dead ends.
Right, it'll be a sidewalk to nowhere, I get it.
Correct. That's all I'm trying to explain to you guys is that it's going to dead end there with a 6 to an 8 inch drop off to that existing grass.
Right, but we can taper it into the grass area, correct?
Yes, if the planning commission allows us to, put in some sort of a taper, then yes, you are absolutely correct.
Okay, Lee or Frank, do you want to chime in here? Can this be done? Is there a problem here? Anyone?
Well, I'll defer to the engineer in the room. With the townhouses, I agree that we did speak about the residents came out. The major thing seemed to be parking, similar to up on Roosevelt Street, what we're experiencing right now with Roosevelt View. Parking is at a premium with townhouses, and I agree that was probably the priority of the discussion.
Okay, so is this a viable compromise? We get him to widen the street and we get him to put in curb cuts and sidewalks?
Well, I'll leave that up to Frank.
Well, that's going to be that's going to be up to the owner too. All right. I mean, that's his private property. If you wanted to put a sidewalk on private property, that could be some complications in that regard. I can only tell you what happened at planning was that because of the apartments that are shown in that photograph further up, the residents were concerned that there's, substantial amount of traffic for the little street. And they were hoping that because of the odd angle coming in at Catasauqua, that they could widen the road and that would make it a more comfortable movement for motorists. And that's really what it came down to.
Okay. Would it be inappropriate to ask Mr. Houston if his client is willing to put the sidewalk on private property at this time, table this, or, we can't vote on this until we know if they're willing to do that, because it sounds like
I lost you.
They've made up their mind.
Is Frank still there?
I'm still here, but everything froze. Okay, John, I missed the last part of your comment about do we table or something about the owner. Can you repeat that?
Would it be inappropriate to ask Mr. Houston right now if the owner would be willing to put the sidewalks on private property? We can't vote on this, Frank, until, it sounds like the board is pretty adamant with sidewalks. I don't speak for the board, but we would have to table this in order to vote on it to see if the owner would be willing to put sidewalks on private property out of the right of way.
Yeah, that's his decision to allow that. I can't make that decision or direct it.
Because we want the street widened because it only makes sense because cars are coming out on the east side and they're backing into, it's a tight street to start with.
Right.
So it does make sense. And there's going to be cars parked between the curb cuts. So it does make sense to get the street widened.
Yeah. Mike House, is your client around or is that something you have to go back to him with?
I can speak on behalf of my client.
Well, that's,
If that's satisfactory for you guys, I am authorized to speak on his behalf.
Okay, well, Mr. Ginder, I think at this point, we could take a vote on this. If they're willing and able, and they're willing to sign an agreement stating they'll install the sidewalks on private property.
If they're willing to consider that, yes. If not, I don't know. Let's let the gentleman speak at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I was authorized by my client to allow for the private sidewalk, or I should say, allow for the sidewalks to be installed on private property. You know, we would have to draft that up on the plan accordingly, obviously, and then the lots will be sold accordingly with an easement along each property.
All right, Mr. Clark, one more question. This taper where the sidewalk to nowhere ends, is there a problem with the degree of taper or anything that you anticipate?
now what I'd have to do is I'll work with the engineer on that, and we'll have to put a taper in, and probably the end of the curb, we'll put a depression in. You can't leave it blank, you know, until somebody else continues it, but we'll have to find a way to get them back out on the street.
All right, so you don't see any problems?
Now, if you have to come up with a taper to get them back out onto the street for a quote accessible path, that's the key phrase.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
So quick comment, Commissioner Fisher, we are going to vote on this tonight,
Yes.
and we're going to get an agreement from the owner that they're going to put the sidewalks on the property, right?
Am I still unmuted?
Yes,
Yeah.
you are, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak on behalf of a legal agreement, but I have no issues with putting it on the plan, you know, easement to be granted to Whitehall Township for sidewalk purposes. I think your solicitor would have to expand on that for any legal documentation, you know, whether it was be a meets and bounds description or, you know, whatever he would require. But I have no problems putting it on the recording plan, all the appropriate notations that would state the same thing.
Okay. Because like I'm going to vote on this, and I just want to make sure that in good faith, like the owner is going to do this, and that sidewalk will go in place. Like there's no like reneging on this agreement that we're discussing through the internet.
No, there is no reneging. My client told me that if it got to this point, and the only way that he could allow, or the only way that you would allow his development to further its improvement was to put the sidewalk on private property, and he was okay with that. So we will make the appropriate notations on the plans to satisfy planning, and then, you know, obviously once they're recorded, you know, we can provide separate exhibits or a legal description of this sidewalk easement if the you know, if the solicitor wants it that way, and record that separately. You know, we're open to whatever you guys feel best from a legal standpoint there.
Okay. I just wanted to check and make sure. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So for a point of clarity, Frank, here, the board, if they're all in agreement, the board would vote no, with the understanding that the owner is going to provide an easement to have the road widened as per plan, and then the addition of the sidewalk adjacent to the curb on private property.
I believe you're correct in that statement, Frank.
All right, I just want to make clear that everybody knows how they're voting and why.
Thanks, Frank. This is Jack Gross. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any confusion there either, based on the last question.
Okay.
And we can certainly, I can certainly work with the property owner to make sure we handle the legal documents to accomplish this.
Okay. Thank you, Frank and Jack, because I was a little confused on that point. So thank you.
No worries.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments in the public comments in the chat room, Zach?
Yeah, Lorianne had a comment. I'll unmute her now.
Sure.
Hi everyone, Lorianne Fainall, 3107 North 3rd Street. I just kind of came into this late, but I do want to make clear there was definitely residents up there that spoke to me about wanting sidewalks up there. Also, that there's a woman apparently in close proximity that uses a motorized scooter. So that was a concern as well. And I understand the person that I talked to in this meeting now. So I'm just kind of using my voice to also let if they do have sidewalks up there. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Any other public comments in the chat room, Zach?
None that I see.
All right, there being no other comments, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Marks,
No.
Commissioner Fisher,
Nay.
Commissioner Atiyah,
No.
Commissioner D,
Nay.
Commissioner Swaniker, nay. Commissioner Warren,
Nay.
and President Ginder.
No.
Bill has 7 nays, 0 ayes.
Okay, bill number 23, 2020. An ordinance amending chapter 15, section 37 of the 2006 codified ordinances of Whitehall Township, establishing 75-foot no parking zones along East Columbia Street. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. And Center Street at the IRT crosswalk approaches in the township of Whitehall, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Warren.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Fisher.
Comments from the board? Any comments from the board? Comments from the public, Zach?
None for this specific bill, I don't believe. Let me just double check for you. Nope. None for this.
There being no other comments, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Swaniker, aye. Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner D,
Aye.
Commissioner Atiyah, and President Ginder.
Yes.
Bill passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill number 25, 2020, an ordinance deferring the required installation of sidewalks along the Job Road frontage of 3645 and 3655 Municipal Drive as required in Chapter 1, Section 21-16 of the Codified Ordinances of Whitehall Township. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mark.
Do I have a second?
I'll second D.
Comments from the board? Any comments from the board? Zach, anybody in the public meeting chat room?
Rob Pelagian had requested to be unmuted, so I unmuted him.
I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
I unmuted Rob Pelagian.
Hey, Phil, it's Rob Pelagian here. I'm the surveyor that did the work on that project.
Yeah, good evening, Ron.
Good evening. I'm here to answer any questions you have regarding this. As I said last week during the workshop, we are extending the sidewalk along Municipal Drive, but there is no other sidewalk within Terrace Acres, and so it would be a sidewalk to nowhere. I don't know if you have any other questions.
Anybody have any questions for Rob?
I have a comment, Rob.
Yes, sir.
You know, there, like you said, there's no other sidewalks when you head north on the street.
That is
However,
correct.
as you can see, we get into these sidewalk issues all the time, and it's because, well, it seems like we should defer this. There is no physical impairment for a sidewalk to go up.
Okay, well, with that being said, Mr. Sloniker, I'd like to refer you to the deferral request that was offered when the township campus was done last year. And specifically, it says no sidewalk exists on the frontage of either street. The township campus has existed since the 1960s, and no sidewalk has been required to service the facility. Additionally, no sidewalk exists throughout the adjacent neighborhoods. Therefore, a sidewalk would not connect to any neighborhood sidewalk and would serve no public purpose. Further, the character of the neighborhood would remain unchanged because it has been in this developed state without sidewalks. I will say additionally, Job Road is at 10% in that area. By installing sidewalk, ADA does allow that, but not at ramp area. So you're actually going to be exceeding the grades for sidewalks with regarding to ADA. It would also go nowhere. You wouldn't be encouraging people to walk. And we're not talking 500 feet of sidewalk. We're talking approximately 125 feet of sidewalk. That's it. It's hard for me to imagine that 125 feet of sidewalk going nowhere within a subdivision that has no sidewalks anywhere else and very wide streets would make any difference. If there was a sidewalk program within Terrace Acres, absolutely, 100%. And as I said before, we're showing a proposed sidewalk along Municipal Drive, specifically because of the traffic that comes in and out of that township building, particularly the public works, on a regular basis. We've extended that, and we are putting an ADA compliant ramp in at that intersection. We want to get the people off. But the fact of the matter is, the people that are going to be serviced by this dental office, a nice big parking lot with a paved area, and they'll be able to walk right over to the dental office. So the safety is enhanced by the installation of sidewalk as we're proposing along Municipal Drive. I personally can see no valid reason to extend it along Job Road. And that's as someone who's been doing development for 35 years. So again, if there was sidewalk even one or two properties away, if there was sidewalk up around the church, we'd have a different conversation. I would not be requesting a deferral, but it would literally go nowhere. So with all due respect, the roads in Terrace Acres are very lightly traveled, with the exception of when they have a church service or some other function there. And that is rare at a minimum once a week, but it's still rare. I surveyed the property personally. The people that I saw walking along those roads were generally township employees out for exercise. That's a fact. I was up there a number of times doing the survey work at various times during the day. Municipal Drive, on the other hand, that's a different story. There's traffic back and forth. So with all due respect, that's why we asked for the deferral.
Okay, and I heard everything you said. I've heard these same arguments over and over and over and over and over again by areas that don't have continuous sidewalks or none at all. But the safety feature of having people walk in the street rather than on a sidewalk, I'm sorry, they don't go ahead and say, oh, you know what, they're the same. It's not that way.
All I can say, sir, is as a 30-year resident of Whitehall Township, who's spent thousands of dollars repairing the sidewalk and keeping it clean in front of my property, and I live down Oakwood Manor, I will tell you that very few people walk on that sidewalk. They mostly walk out in the street, and it's much narrower than Job Road. And that's just a fact. You force people to walk on sidewalks.
And again, when I talk to the police department, the chief and whatnot, the whole idea is to get people off the street onto the pavement so that you don't have unintended accidents where somebody can get injured.
Well, there is a level area all along there within the right of way. I just see a concrete sidewalk going to nowhere as creating a problem.
And you being with what you do, you know that the township has in its charter, I'm not sure if it's charter, but every property is supposed to have sidewalks. That's why you have to ask for deferral. It's not because, oh, well, again, we've had people with lots of problems, and it still does not satisfy the chances of getting injured by walking in the street.
Well, with all due respect, sir, I don't know what the accident rate is for walking on such a lightly traveled road as Job Road. But the township commissioners made a decision when that subdivision was constructed to not require sidewalk. They required curbing, no sidewalk. And in fact, the township commissioners granted themselves a waiver with the campus upgrades. I don't see how that's any different from where we're at. We're just across the street.
I would argue that was a deferral.
Any other comments from the board?
And Commissioner Fisher, just a brief comment on it. I mean, I think in many ways we should be playing the long game here. And just because there's no traffic, because there's not a lot of foot traffic back in that neighborhood right now doesn't mean 35, 50 years from now there's not going to be. And the development is going to continue throughout Whitehall, and that neighborhood is not static. So playing the long game, 35, 50 years out, that neighborhood would be better with sidewalks. And things may change and sidewalks may go back there. So I think it might just be a good time to get a good jump on it. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Ginder, may I respond to that?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Mr. Fisher, that Terrace Acres will never get extended because it borders on the floodplain. So there's not going to be any additional development within Terrace Acres. They're not going to be building a bridge across the Copley Creek. Let me back up and say it's very unlikely that that will ever occur. So, and the exit point of Terrace Acres is the only way to get out, with the exception of Municipal Drive, and it's only a right in, right out to go northbound on MacArthur Road. So I can't see a time in the future, 30 or 50 years from now, when it's been over 50 years that Terrace Acres has been in place and there hasn't been a need for sidewalk. No commissioners have ever thought about doing a sidewalk installation within that subdivision. And I can't see that the traffic will ever increase to a point in that subdivision. Is everything static? Absolutely it isn't. But at the same time, it's hard for me to believe that 125 feet of sidewalk is going to magically lead to curing any type of possible public safety, particularly when you've got a public street that's 30 feet wide, a right-of-way that's 50 feet wide. You've got 10 feet area on either side. Someone can easily step out of the cartway if they had to. And people being the way they are, they don't want to walk on sidewalks. You're going to encourage people to go up, and they're going to end nowhere. It's going to end in somebody's front yard. So again, that's what's out there now on the north side. The sidewalks come back off of MacArthur Road and magically end at a property line in front of the dental office. Goes nowhere. We're taking the time to extend that down to the corner of Municipal and Job Road. So and in the wintertime, if the sidewalk goes in and it gets shoveled away, somebody's going to walk up there, and now they're going to have to step out in the street across snow. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's why we're asking the deferral. It has nothing to do with the cost. I mean, my client paid a lot of money, and he's going to pay a lot of money to tear an existing house down. particularly now in this real estate climate, that house is worth a lot more than what he paid for it. But he still wants to tear it down to put in his parking lot and make it safe for the people in the area. And that's why we're requesting a deferral. It really boils down to a sidewalk going to nowhere. And again, 125 feet of sidewalk to nowhere, I can't see the safety aspect in it. I can't see the benefits. And I agree with you. As a member of the Planning Commission in the township, we look at this stuff all the time. We are not permitted to make comments or recommendations on sidewalk deferrals, but we still look at it. We still examine it in our deliberations. So, with all due respect, that's my response.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Zach, is there anybody in the chat room and the public with comments on this?
That was just Rob. So no additional ones.
There being none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Marks? Commissioner Marks?
Joe, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes?
Yes.
I just voted yes.
Okay, Commissioner Swaniger, nay. Commissioner Atiyah?
Yes.
Commissioner D?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Nay.
Commissioner Warren?
Nay.
And President Kinder?
Yes.
Passes 4 ayes, 3 nays.
Public hearing and voting on resolutions. Resolution number 3129. A resolution granting the mayor the authority to execute a reimbursement agreement with PennDOT for winter traffic services within the township of Whitehall, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, D.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it. Warren.
Comments from the board?
Yeah, I guess we never got an answer back. Lehigh County gets a budget every year to do highway maintenance. There was a report done on how many road miles they have to maintain for every district. I believe District 5 has the 3rd or 4th highest cost per road mile. Passes down a lot of that responsibility to municipalities, and they have the lowest reimbursement to municipalities per road mile. So I asked for clarification. Why is District 5, Lehigh County, Northampton County, Berks County, the lowest reimbursed in the entire state when they have the 3rd or 4th highest budget per road mile for maintenance? So I don't know if I have an answer to approve this. I mean, it could be additional approval pending further clarification and agreement with the administration, but I think we're taking their responsibility. Would they take all our road miles for $941 or some cents per mile? I don't think they'd say yes. That's all I have.
The mayor being on vacation, I don't know if Jack has anything on this or not.
Yeah, I've been speaking with, texting back and forth with Jeff and Mr. Sandher from District 50. He ran it up the food chain, I guess, the central office, but we still haven't had a response yet as to why the township is only reimbursed the lowest, and District 5 has the 3rd highest turnover of PennDOT miles to municipal control. It seems like the ones that are the highest amounts per mile are the ones that PennDOT does all the work, and none of the municipalities enter into these things. So it would be my recommendation to defer this until next quarter, where PennDOT can give us some kind of answers.
I
Okay,
would agree with you, Jack, because, we are affected by the nor'easters that come up the coast, whereas maybe out in Dauphin County, they are not. Yet they get several $100s more per road mile to do the same thing that we're doing here in Lehigh County. If it was all equal and that's what they were offering and that's all we could get, that's one thing. But when some municipalities are getting $1,300 or $1,400 per road mile and we're getting $900 or less, $941 or less, I think we're taking on. Not all things are equal in this state.
No, all we want is a fair shot. I mean, and we're taking more of the burden of PennDOT's responsibilities in this township, as are many municipalities within the 5-0 district, and they're getting less money to show for it than ones that have PennDOT taking care of everything except a few miles.
And I would also add, I think our road mile cost is higher. And that's on materials alone and not labor.
all right, go ahead.
I guess I would defer this, and I would write back to Mr. Sand, who we've been communicating back and forth with, Jeff and I, and ask him, well, what have you learned? What can you do for us?
Yeah.
Because it's a distinct possibility that you may be taking back these functions.
Okay, any other comments from the board? All right, Attorney Gross, could you make sure I don't misstep through this? I believe what we have to do is have the first and the second motion withdrawn to hold this off till next month.
Yes, if that's the intent, I believe it was Mr. D who made the motion. They and Mr. Warren who seconded it. They should speak again to retract their motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Withdraw it. I'm sorry, I lost the words.
Commissioner Warren, I withdraw my second.
Well, I had it introduced by Commissioner D and seconded by Commissioner Warren. Do I have that wrong?
What?
No, that's correct.
So,
Okay.
That's correct. And I believe that's who I heard
Okay.
withdraw it using the correct word, since I forgot it.
Just wanted to make sure. All right, with the motions withdrawn, this will be tabled until next month. Resolution number 3130. A resolution conditionally approving the minor subdivision land development plan of 3645 and 3655 Municipal Drive, index number 1967-20. I have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Fisher.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mark.
Comments from the board? Any comments from the board? There being none, any comments from the public, Zach?
Yeah, Robert Pelagian asked to be unmuted again.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm here to answer any questions that you have. I've heard no questions so far. I believe I went through the project last week. Nothing's changed, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Rob, you have to identify yourself, please.
Sorry about that. It's Robert Pelagian from Bascom and Sager, 116 North 5th Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania, 18102. Apologize for that, Mr. Slonica.
No, that's okay. Just to get it on the record correct, that's all.
That's okay.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public, Zach?
I don't see any others.
There being none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Mark,
Yes.
Commissioner D,
Aye.
Commissioner Warren,
Aye.
Moniker, aye. And Commissioner Attia.
Yes.
And President Ginder.
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution number 3131, a resolution approving Interim Act 537 and a portion of Whitehall Township in accordance with the Pennsylvania Storage Facilities Act. PL 1535, number 537. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Marks.
Do I have a second?
I'll second D.
Discussion from the board.
Yeah, once again, I'd just like to thank Lee and Dave Harleman for all their hard work. And I'm going to quiz all of you gentlemen later to find out if you read the document, because it's really intriguing reading.
Any other comments from the board? Anybody in the public chat box, Zach?
There are none.
There being none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner D?
Aye.
Commissioner Attia?
Yes.
Commissioner Stoniker? Aye. Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
And President Ginder?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution number 3132, a resolution approving the submission of an application for traffic signal approval and authorizing the mayor to submit such application. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion D.
Do I have a second?
Yeah. I'll second.
Comments from the board? Any comments from the board? Chat, is there anybody in the, Zach, is there anybody in the chat room for this?
Yes, Jonathan Rogers from Keystone Engineering. I'm going to unmute him now.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Jonathan Rogers from Keystone Consulting Engineers, 5012 Medical Center Circle in Allentown. Just here to answer any questions if needed.
Do you know Frank Clark? Do you know Frank Clark, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Any other comments? Any questions for the engineer? There being none, Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner D?
Aye.
Commissioner Attia? Commissioner Mark?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
Commissioner Stoniker? Aye. President Ginder?
Yes.
Resolution passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, before I move on to others, I don't know if everybody received this. There was a letter dated the 16th of July, 2020, to the attention of Lee Rackus, Bureau Chief, Planning, Zoning, Development, in referral of a resignation. Dear Lee, after having the opportunity and privilege to serve on the Whitehall Township Planning Commission for quite a few years, I've decided it's time to step down as chairman and planning commission member effective July 16th, 2020. I have enjoyed the years I served on the planning commission and thank everyone for their help and friendship throughout the years. I would like to thank Rob for his very much appreciated guidance and expertise throughout the years. I wish everyone the very best. Sincerely, Jim Molinaro. Now, at this point, I would like to note that Jim's first meeting on the Planning Commission was on the 13th of January, 1992. He served on our Planning Commission for 28 and a half years continuously. He served many years as chairman and vice chairman of the Planning Commission. Whitehall Township Planning Commission and staff have an excellent history of dedication and service to this township. Without their efforts, the commissioners' jobs would be extremely difficult. This particular member of the Planning Commission did an exceptional job for 28 and a half continuous years. We thank you, Jim, and stay well. Best of health and happiness. Jim, it's a job well done. And that's the comment I wish to make on Mr. Molinaro. Now, as the replacement under motions, to appoint Jonathan Bolton from an alternate to a regular member on the Planning Commission to complete the term vacated by James Molinaro. Term to expire December 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Marks.
Do I have a second?
I'll second Fisher.
Mr. Secretary, any comments from the commission?
Yeah, Phil, I'd like to make one. This is Mark. I served for 4 years. I was honored to serve with Jim. He's a fine man. He served this township well, decade after decade. I know he'll be sorely missed, and good luck to you, Mr. Molinaro.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Bill, I'd also just like to thank Mr. Molinaro. It's that kind of dedication that has kept this township as strong as it is. So thank you.
Any other comments from the Board of Commissioners? Because of his time and his special dedication over the years and everything, I'm going to ask, is there any comment from any of the staff?
Well, I echo your sentiments. Jim was a voice of reason. I was very calm. He was a great leader to the Planning Commission. You know, he's lived in the township for a long time. He's just one of the finest people that we get to work with. All of your Planning Commission is you know, all of the people that I work with in my capacity are very dedicated to the township, and we're lucky to have all of them. But Jim, you know, stuck with it for a long time. He's been through a lot of different things that we've passed. He's helped Whitehall Township develop into, you know, a wonderful community over the past almost 30 years. And again, you know, we're lucky that people like him want to serve on our boards. It's a great example. And Jonathan is going to be a great addition to the Planning Commission too. I spoke briefly last week about that. We're very lucky. We have great people in this township. They don't always get showcased like they should, but we do.
Well said. Any other comments?
I'm the commissioner that's on the planning board right now, and since this is kind of apropos with me talking, I'd like to echo the same sentiments that Phil and Joe and Lee gave. He's genuinely a very, very good guy. Right?
Any other comments?
Yeah, Frank here. I just want to mention that, remember when Jim came on all those years ago, and he's really was a guiding hand and always brought a voice of reason. We've certainly had our share of cantankerous meetings throughout the years, and Jim always was able to calm the waters and treat everybody very even-handedly. So kind of like an elder statesman, if you will. He's definitely going to be missed. We'll have, you know, more tradition of other folks carrying on, but he was a great asset to not just the board, but the community as well. So I'm going to miss him.
Any other comments? Any comments from the public?
There aren't any.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, please poll the board.
Commissioner Marks?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Atia?
Yes.
Commissioner D?
Aye.
Commissioner Swaniker? Aye. Commissioner Warren?
Aye.
And President Ginder.
Yes.
Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Okay, reports of public officials. We'll start with the board of commissioners. Commissioner Warren, would you start, please?
Yeah, I guess the last couple of months, Mick D has referenced the Whitehall Copley Hunger Initiative. They're doing a fine job since the pandemic. I do want to give an extra special shout out to Ann Chikili and Eric Segan, their friends and family, who took it upon themselves to establish a community garden at the Mickley Pride and Farm. The garden is fantastic. It's a work of art. They produce things: zucchini, tomatoes, cucumbers, sweet peppers, banana peppers, green peppers, and they've been providing produce since the beginning of July to the Whitehall Copley Hunger Initiative. It started out as a pilot project, and there's a lot of interest in expanding the farm, and it's been a tremendous success. So I just want to give them a shout out to them. And there's been a number of people that stepped forward that would like to help in the future, and also there's other greenhouses that have offered some support. So I want to give a shout out to them. And following on to that, there's a grant opportunity opening up this fall, and I was hoping either next month or October we could consider a resolution to endorse applying for a non-matching grant through DCED to do some of the necessary improvements. Without a building that we could do stuff down there, the farm is very limited. These folks have been working out of their vehicle, going there every day. And I think there's tremendous opportunity at that property. So I would love to work with Attorney Gross in providing some language for the board to consider. That's all I have.
Commissioner Fisher?
Okay, I got a few quick things. So this is August. This is traditionally the last month before school starts. So I just want to say, these are like abnormal times, and I just want to encourage everyone to continue mask wearing, continue being socially distant, continuing being safe. My wife is a teacher. I am very concerned about her health and the condition she's going into. And I know a lot of other teachers are concerned. So everyone, please use common sense. Be safe. Two other quick things I want to mention. We just had this recent storm. I know a lot of you are well aware of the Ironton Rail Trail. Large parts of it, there were some washout in some certain areas, and I know there's some trees fell. And I just really wanted to thank the IRT for the work they've done to clear the trail and to try to just improve it, especially after the storm. I was writing the other day, there's some other sections, especially in North Whitehall Township, where the trail is still closed because of washout and erosion. And I just want to encourage, if anyone's interested, the IRT is always looking for volunteers and people who can help out, especially in these times. So the contact information for them can be found on the township website as well as on Facebook. And the last thing I want to say, and this is kind of a shout out, I want to give to Tony Coco and our Parks and Recreation staff. So a few weeks back, I was down in the parkway, down by the quarry ponds where the wooden deck is, and I noticed that some of the boards had fallen out. And it was kind of a danger, kind of a hazard. If anybody falls through those boards, you're in the lake. So I shot an email to Tony. I asked him what he could do about it. And within a few days, he was down there and had it fixed. So the parkway, and especially that area, is very beautiful. It's one of the jewels of the township. I mean, it's a great place. I've gone to just see herons, eastern towhees, red-winged blackbirds. It's just a really great place to commune with nature. So especially in these times, I just really want to thank Tony and the Parks and Rec staff for all they're doing right now to just get us outside and just keep us busy. So that's all I got. So be safe, everyone, and have a good night.
Commissioner Attia.
Yeah, Bill, I don't have much. I just wanted to thank all of the emergency responders from, I believe it was August 5th during all that flooding. I know there was tons and tons of calls and emergencies throughout the township that they had to respond to. So again, just a shout out to them for all their hard work and dedication there. The last thing I did want to mention is kind of to piggyback off of Commissioner Fisher asking for some volunteers. I know at the last Parks and Rec meeting that I sat in on, a lot of our parks directors, they're struggling to just find more volunteers to help out the parks, just to kind of keep up with the upkeep that it takes to keep a park going. So if anybody's interested, you feel free to reach out to myself, and I can get you connected with our parks director. So again, thank you for everybody and all your hard work.
Commissioner D.
Thank you. A couple of things. Going back to the storms that we had on Tuesday, many residents faced water in their basement. I did myself. But one thing that really bothers me, I live in Fullerton, there are two roads close by, Eberhart Road and Lehigh Street, that flood all the time during heavy rain. I can't implore people enough, please don't try to drive through flooded roadways. It makes absolutely no sense. Barricades are put up, I know, on Lehigh Street. People drive around the barricades. I know Commissioner Warren even mentioned during the workshop, we put 2 up on either side of the road to try to prevent people. People actually move the barricades and drive through. I saw a picture of 3 abandoned vehicles. I saw a picture of a car on Lehigh Street or on Eberhart Road that was stuck in the water. Folks, you got to remember that if you do get stuck in that water, if there needs to be some sort of a water rescue or even a tow truck has to come in, you're putting other people's lives in jeopardy and their safety, and it's not fair. And please, if you see high water, if you drive Eberhart Road, if you drive Lehigh Street, in heavy rain they're going to flood. Please don't drive through deep water like that. I know it might take 10, 15 minutes out of your time to find an alternate route, but it's just not fair to put people's safety and lives on the line because you can't be inconvenienced. So next time we get heavy rain like that, please don't drive through flooded roadways. It makes absolutely no sense. Commissioner Fisher mentioned the IRT. I am on the IRT commission. And I just want to piggyback off what he says. It's an all-volunteer group that goes out there. They go out during the week. I can't join them, but I join them on Saturday mornings. So many people in Whitehall Township and neighboring communities enjoy the Ironton Rail Trail. It's a great trail. It's unique. It's always crowded on a weekend, but please keep in mind that it's maintained by all volunteers. And when I am out there volunteering on a Saturday morning, I'm the youngest guy there, and I'm not that young. So if you enjoy the trail, please consider donating some of your time, grass cutting, weed clearing, branches clearing. I think both Commissioner Fisher and Commissioner Attia mentioned the last storm, there were trees down, and we did get some public works people to help out in the neighboring communities, but please, if you enjoy it, volunteer your time, help everybody out to keep the trail maintained. And one last time, speaking of IRT, the 19th annual IRT 10K run walk is Saturday, August 22nd. It starts and ends in Copley. It'll start at the Copley Pavilion. It starts at 7:30 in the morning. It's kind of one of the big main fundraisers for the IRT. Again, you can run, you can walk, you can jog, you can push your child in a stroller, but come out and enjoy the weather, enjoy the trail, and it'll go the loop and end right in front of the Copley Kilns, the Sailor Kilns in Copley. It's a great event, so please come out and support the Ironton Rail Trail. That's all I have. Thank you.
Commissioner Marks.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank Public Works for all they did in last Tuesday's storm, and Mr. Rackus and his crew. They did a phenomenal job. Our men and women on our police department. A special thanks to Chris Grimm, who was on call continuously during the whole event and, monitored the situation and called whoever he felt was necessary. So emergency management, our fire police who were out there all day in the rain, in the puddles, in the rivers. They do a phenomenal job, irreplaceable. Those men and women, can't thank them enough for what they do. Our fire department, of course, they did an exceptional job. I'd like to call out Station 40, who participated in 6 water rescues. They were helping the county, the coroner's office. They were on call for over 18 hours that day. And like I said, they participated in 6 water rescues in Lehigh County and also in the city of Ironton. One question I have, Mr. Clark, are you there?
I'm here, Joe.
I had inquired with the mayor while you were on vacation about the solar panels that are down at Eberhart Road on the sewer authority property. He stated that he was going to contact you to see if we could integrate these panels into the construction project. The problem we have at the sewer authority right now is we're doing a major construction project down at the Eberhart Control Center, and we need to get them out of there. Do you know if the mayor or yourself agree that we will take these panels, use them, or should we move on?
I did speak to Mike about that last week, or a week before, I guess, week before last. And we did talk about that. We had a couple of suggestions. At least we can probably use them maybe in a park situation where it's difficult to get power or something like that. But I was trying to, if we could tie in some kind of environmental component to that, whether it's powering some kind of lighting in an area where there's recreation, something like that. So he liked the idea, and I wasn't aware that you needed to get them out of there. So I can check with Tony and see if there's any space maybe in the barn down at Leonard Road or someplace you can store them until we find a permanent use for them.
Are you aware of the volume of this? I mean, it's not just, it's a lot of steel. I mean, this is a pretty large, solar array. So I don't know if you're aware of the size of this, but what we need to do right now is get them out of the yard at Eberhart so we can start this project. And it's going to start any day now. I don't know if we have any room in Public Works or wherever, but it just needs to be moved out of there if we're
all right. Yeah, I'm not aware how much you have down there, Joe. So let me get a hold of either Recreation and or Public Works. I'll take a poke down there. I'll be up there tomorrow morning. I'll take a ride down, see what kind of volume they have, and see if we can find a home for it, at least temporarily.
All right, fair enough.
All right, thanks, Joe.
All right, that's all I have, Phil.
Commissioner Sloniger.
I want to recognize the fact that Bridge Street has been made so that the residents there can finally use the road after over a year of having to go different ways to get out from their residences. And at the same development on Church Street, like 3 weeks ago, I saw skid marks right in between one of the retention ponds. And we've discussed this before, and there's not much to prevent somebody from going in there, and especially with this huge rain we had, a car could go in there, and we might not even see it for a few hours, and it's something that still has to be addressed. That's all I have.
Did you copy that, Frank?
Hang on. Can you hear me? Oh, it froze up again.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Frank.
I think he said his system froze again.
Okay. If he comes back, we'll let him on. I only have two brief things. I wanted to thank Frank too for all the efforts to get Bridge Street finished. It was quite a going on. It was daily going down there and holding feet to the fire, but we made it this far. And I just want to do a brief thank you. I know other commissioners have done it, but Public Works to get us through the storm with as bad as it was, as much as could have went wrong. I think they all did an excellent job. All right, are you back, Frank?
Yes, I'm back. My internet keeps dropping out. In answer to Tom's concern about the ponds, I had a call into the owner to see what his schedule is because there was some disconnect between the contractor who's responsible for installing it and the owner who's responsible for the money. That was some of the tie-up with Bridge Street. So I'm going to be following up with the owner regarding that fencing out there.
Okay, thank you, Frank, for all your efforts. Mayor's report. The mayor's on vacation. Deputy Mayor Myers, do you have anything to contribute?
At this point in time, thank you.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
Okay, I would just like to say that the last year and a half have certainly not been what I expected in Treasurer's office. Never did I expect not have a full staff or lose an entire staff for almost 3 months. That being said, the most important work that I felt needed had to be done was done by me to keep the office in the shape it needed to be in. Doing the work of 4 people was quite a task, and some things were left undone. The staff is now back and working very hard to catch up and not fall behind with deposits and distribution of taxes. As soon as I receive all the needed statements that I have, I can assure the board that the reports that you are requesting will be done and bringing everything up to where it needs to be. So thank you.
Any other comments? All right, that being the comments for the evening, do I have a motion for adjournment? Do I have a first?
I'll make that motion, Fisher.
Do I have a second?
I'll second D.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Be safe. Have a good night.
Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Zach.